Chris Cowlin. Fan cams. Club news. Transfer news. Match previews. Legend interviews. Spurs winning. Press conferences. Covering everything Tottenham and England.
Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat podcast. This is another edition of the viewers and listeners' questions and comments. We will be going through as many as possible. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by channel regular and the Daily Mail journalist, Josh Hughes. Josh, how are you this morning?
I'm gobsmacked. I can't believe how sneaky Spurs have been with William Wilson. Sorry, it's Wilson, is it? Wilson Odobert. This shows how little I knew about it and how little I know about him and how little I think everyone knew about this. I mean, they've just completely taken us all by surprise. Fee being reported by some French journalists as 37 million euros, 37.5 million euros plus add-ons and sell-on for Burnley, which seems like an awful lot of money for a 19-year-old that's had one Premier League season. But
Josh, I only asked how you were. You cannot wait to get started.
I'm gobsmacked, completely gobsmacked.
Literally, just minutes before we have gone live, an official club statement has just been released by Tottenham Hotspur. It says, "We are delighted to announce that we have reached an agreement for the permanent transfer of Wilson Odobert from Burnley, subject to formalities. The 19-year-old has agreed a deal that will run until 2029, and he will wear the number 28 shirt." Now, Josh, of course, this episode is all about the viewers and the listeners, all about what they want to know and what they have been commenting on in previous videos. But we've got to start with this news because Tottenham Hotspur have got another deal over the line. As you say, it was a surprise to everybody. No journalist has commented or reported on this. I think it was reported in France about 20-30 minutes before this actually happened by one journalist. And then Spurs all of a sudden put the statement out. There you are. Ange Postecoglou has got another signing in. We have 2 weeks left of the summer transfer window. Of course, it is now 2 weeks until the Europa League draw as well, and only 3 days until we take on Leicester. But let's get your thoughts, first of all, on the signing of Wilson Odobert from Burnley. Are you surprised?
Well, I mean, I think it's obvious I'm surprised. We're talking about someone that has had one season of Premier League football, 19, France and under-21 international. He had the most successful dribbles, the most take-ons for a teenager in the Premier League, I think, last season, with, I think, if my numbers are correct, 53. He was one of the players that I've only seen him a handful of times. When I've seen him, he's looked impressive. But, the question here is who wanted him in? And my guess would be that this is an Ange choice. This is who Ange Postecoglou wants, because, to be honest, they have been giving him the players he wants. We may want Eze, we may want, whoever, but if this is a player Ange wants, I mean, that's an awful lot of money. If we're talking about 37 million plus euros, we're talking in pounds, 31.5 million pounds, just over 30 million pounds for a player with 1 year's Premier League experience, very young, still pretty unproven and raw. That's an awful lot of money to be spending on a player with such a lack of experience. And they've obviously seen something in him. So that, as I say, it sounds to me like an Ange Postecoglou signing. Now, obviously, it's exciting. He's young. He's got potential. You wouldn't be in the France under-21 squad if you didn't have quality. But I'm very kind of on the fence with this because, frankly, I don't think any of us know an awful lot about him unless you've covered him extensively in France or you're a Burnley fan. So it's very much a great big fat question mark. And I'm trusting the process, as they say. But you know, for me, it's all well and good doing this, but you know, without wanting to put a downer on it, we're not competing in the 2027-28 Premier League season. We're competing in the 2024-25 season. And I think there'll be a lot of Tottenham fans asking questions, you know, are we going to sign any players that are ready now? Is this just another one of those players with potential that's going to be good in a few years' time? And I think there's a lot of people, especially with the Premier League kicking off tonight, that might be asking questions of this and slightly concerned by the fact that, you know, if this is going to be the winger that we sign this summer, and what I mean by that is we're not going to sign another winger now, you know, do they really think he's ready now? The other thing that I would just point out, we were talking about this off air, subject to formalities. It's a very strange use of words. And I think this is one of the first times I can remember Spurs, certainly in a long time, doing a post about a deal agreed for a player, subject to formality, and not announcing it with him holding up the Spurs shirt, announcement video. I think the whole thing's very, very strange.
Well, is it a case, though, Josh, of this deal has just been done so quickly and, of course, very obviously under the radar, no journalist knowing anything about it?
Well, just to butt in with this, Alistair Gold has just reported that the Odebear deal will cost Spurs £25 million plus potentially another 5 million in add-ons. So I think the numbers from the French journalists are a little bit all over the place. I think Ali Gold is a fantastic journalist. I trust that his numbers will be right. So 25 million plus 5 in add-ons. Suddenly, I think that looks a little bit more reasonable than £31.5 million plus add-ons. So let's call it 25 for now. And suddenly, I think I feel a little bit better about the deal. In terms of moving quickly, well, you'd think that considering his past medical tests, that they would have been able to whip something together. I mean, these video teams can move very, very quickly. They can put stuff together. The only thing is, of course, yesterday was the media access day at Spurs, and all the attention, the club media, everything was on getting all of the stuff ready for Leicester and the Premier League season. You know, when you see the players on Sky Sports before a game doing their sort of this in front of the camera, all of that sort of stuff. So maybe it was just a case of this did happen really quickly and, you know, they haven't had time to sort it all out. But the whole thing's just a bit mad, isn't it?
Josh, when you say you think it's an Ange Postecoglou signing, what else do you think that he wants in this window? Because when I look at comments like this, they wouldn't give Ange Postecoglou Eze. So this is who he gets. And what I really wanted to ask you is, you've just said it, you know, it's not about competing for the Premier League in 3 or 4 years' time. It's competing for now, for this season. With all of the youngsters, and I get all of the excitement, you know, with a lot of the under-21 development players coming through, taking their opportunities in pre-season, etc., and then Spurs signing a number of talented players and clearly going out, identifying real top talent, you know, not only around Europe, but across the other side of the world as well. Are you a little bit worried or frustrated or both in terms of Spurs not going out and buying some experienced players? I know we've got Solanke just come in, but, you know, I quite often said on this channel in the last couple of weeks that if Spurs went out and signed another couple of real experienced players, you put them into this squad, then our squad starts to look very, very strong, because a couple of injuries to this current squad or this current starting 11, we could see another situation like we did last year.
Yeah, look, I think we have to be really clear on this. There is a massive difference between what we want as fans and what Ange Postecoglou wants. Just because you or me could be desperate to sign Eze does not mean that that is a player that Ange Postecoglou wants to sign.
But Josh, I don't think any Premier League manager would turn down experienced Premier League players or experienced players who have been there, done it, got the T-shirt, won the trophies.
Well, we're talking about, I suppose, in the case of Eze's not won anything, but it doesn't mean he wants him. Just because we think Eze would be perfect, I don't know a Spurs fan who doesn't want, Eze. But Ange Postecoglou might think if he's been given a budget, right, you've got, say, I don't know, 150 million pounds or 120 million pounds, whatever, right? He wants to fill X, Y, and Z position, and he says, right, you're going to have to pay, say, up towards 70 million pounds to get Eberechi Eze, which means that you're not going to be able to afford quality in the positions that you need to fill. Ange Postecoglou might think it's not worth that money when he has alternative players that he likes. That means he can fill the position. Now, I know that doesn't mean fans are going to like it. I don't like it. I want Eze. But, my point being, just because we have said as a fan base, oh, we want Brian and Mbeumo, we want Eze, we want, Victor Gyökeres, that doesn't mean that that's necessarily the players that they've identified. We've spent £65 million on Dominic Solanke. Dominic Solanke is clearly the Ange Postecoglou choice. That's a lot of money to spend on any player. Club record for Dominic Solanke. Clearly, that's who Ange wanted. Brennan Johnson, much the same, £47 million for a player that a lot of fans didn't want. But from what I've been told, that was Ange's man. So, yeah, that's what I'm getting at. Is I know I'm not sure any manager would turn down the chance to sign Eze, but this is Tottenham Hotspur, and there's always a but in a transfer window. And the thing is, we're not going to go and spend £250 million in a window. It's just not going to happen under Levy. I would be stunned unless we got some sort of oil money from somewhere that Levy could spend that wasn't his. I think it's just a case of we can't do it all. And that annoys me because I want to see us, sign players. But, I think this is it. Alice has just said in the comments, like at a reasonable price, I think this is it. We've spent over £100 million. We don't know exactly what the budget is. And I think that's the only reason why. And if he's prioritizing certain players, maybe we've wanted Odebear for ages. Who knows? I mean, we literally don't know. So, yeah, I think it's an important point that just because we want the player doesn't mean Ange wants them. And we can think Ange is crazy for not wanting a certain player. I'm not saying Ange doesn't want Eze, but then there's also factor in the budget, factor in what Levy's willing to spend on players. Eze, for example, I had a brief chat with Ali Gold last night at a football tournament, El Presico, of which I'm delighted to say Mail Sport won against Football London in the final game. But he said, Eze, he's not convinced because it's too much money up front.
Is that the issue with Eze, Josh? That it is that fee has to be paid in one lump sum, and as we've known and as it's been widely reported in the past that. Spurs like to pay in instalments or over, a number of months or a number of years, a number of instalments. Is that the issue? Because it just seems that a player like Eze would be perfect in this Spurs side if Spurs were only to go and spend that money.
Yeah, for sure. And this is it. Is it enough of a priority for Spurs? Because I don't know the actual nitty gritty of it, but this is the thing that is being repeated to me. Tottenham would have to spend a hell of a lot of money up front on Eze, whether that's the full fee or a huge bulk of the fee. We're talking enough money that is enough to think that Spurs just aren't going to do it, and when you add that to kind of the other side of it is, okay, you're right. Spurs do like to do installments. Spurs also, and as we're going to see a lot of, and we are seeing a lot of this at the minute, is, either that happening and then a Spurs player would then go to Palace as a separate transfer, but essentially you can call it the same transaction. It's, it's just, it's like the same thing. It's just being done in a certain way to look a certain way. But, what if Spurs say, okay, Oliver Skip, Palace say, no, thank you, not interested. Spurs go and say, okay, James Maddison. I'm not saying this has happened. This is just totally, just as an example. James Maddison doesn't want the move. This is my point, is Spurs could try and offer players to cheapen the deal, or they pay the lump sum and then they sell someone, But Palace either don't want the player, or Spurs players might not want the move to Palace. So that's why we're in that situation, I think, where we have no choice but to pay a hefty lump sum up top. And this is why it makes it incredibly unrealistic, especially now that it's been reported that Manchester City have opened talks for him.
Josh, I don't know whether you're reading a lot of the comments coming in, and thanks so much for putting all the comments in the live stream, by the way, to everyone watching. There's a lot of negativity at the moment about Wilson Odobert saying, who is he? When you think that the Premier League is the most watched league around the world, and he played, a big part for Burnley last season, scored a number of goals as well, and everyone's saying, well, who is he? There is a lot of negativity, even from Ed here. Andrew's going to be sacked, and he'll have only himself to blame. Now, when you think, it's only a week ago since we announced the signing of Dominic Solanke, our record signing at £65 million. We're 3 days away from the start of the Premier League season. This is the time, Josh, when fans are meant to feel the most excited. And even, Teddy Sheringham in the last couple of days have stated that he hopes that Spurs could have a title push and a title challenge. He thinks they'll finish fourth, but he's actually mentioned Spurs and title in the same sentence. Now, players like that who have played for the club are mentioning possible title challenges, yet the fans are very negative right now. They don't seem to be happy. And my point is that when you go out and spend £65 million on a player, like when we did with a similar amount on Tanguy Ndombele in 2019, the fan base was very, very excited when we brought in Tanguy Ndombele. There isn't that same excitement, and there doesn't seem to be that excitement where we've gone out and paid big money, broke our transfer record fee paid for Dominic Solanke. Josh, where's the excitement?
Well, look, I think there's one thing that we need to also bear in mind, and this is something that I think we're often guilty of. Carson H here says Spurs fans are so negative and unrealistic. Unrealistic is the word that I'm going to use here, because I think there's a difference between negativity and wanting the best for your team and being frustrated that you feel that we're capable of doing more, but we're not. Unrealistic's the key thing here. Tottenham are a Europa League club, not a Champions League club. We've won one trophy in my lifetime. And that was the League Cup. It wasn't, let's not call it a major trophy, because it's not a major trophy. The League Cup's not a major trophy at all. It's a good trophy, but it's not an FA Cup. It's not a Premier League. It's not a European title of sorts. And we seem to think that everything is Football Manager. Everything is FIFA. You can go out and spend crazy money and just sign whoever you want. A lot of the top players that Tottenham fans might want us to sign may have no interest in joining Spurs because they're a Europa League club, they've won nothing, and they get paid better wages elsewhere. That's the reality of it. That's the reality of it. And if Ange Postecoglou wants a player, and this is, I'm very critical of the ownership. I don't like the ownership at all at the club. But I think what also is true is we're looking at what West Ham are doing. How are West Ham signing Fulkrug and Somerville and Guido Rodriguez and Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and Jean-Claire Todibo? Brilliant signings. Brighton, one of the biggest spenders. Aston Villa, one of the biggest spenders. And they got into the Champions League. All the clubs around us seem to be doing it. And with Spurs, it always seems to be the case that, even though we are signing players, we're not signing players that necessarily are as known. But who knew about Mickey van der Ven? No one did. I'm not going to have, unless you've been following the Bundesliga or you're from Volendam. I'm not going to believe that you knew loads about Mickey van der Ven. None of us did. And he's the best signing that we made. How many people knew about Destiny Udogie? Very few people knew about Destiny, unless you're Italian. Some of the best signings that we've actually made are the ones that people didn't know too much about. And in many ways, I'm not too concerned about Odobert. But at this event last night that I was at, former Chelsea, West Ham, Charlton player Scott Minto was there. And a good chat with him, chewing the fat about the Premier League season. And I said to him, I genuinely believe that Spurs can finish as high as third or as low as ninth, depending on how the rest of the window goes. And he completely agreed with me. And I think that's why there's also negativity, because I think a lot of people feel that way, and there's no hiding that Spurs have money. There's no hiding that Spurs can spend a lot of money because of PSR and FFP, because we've, done things so close by the book. But I think when we're looking at 135 million there or thereabouts on Gray, Odobert and Solanke, I can understand why people are nervous, especially when there's still gaping holes in our team. We haven't fixed the set piece issue, as was evident against Bayern Munich. And, you're seeing some of the names that are being signed elsewhere. I mean, Aaron Wan-Bissaka for 15 million. It looks like Ange wants to keep Jed Spence, and I'm not going to knock him for that. He's looked good in pre-season, but 15 million for Wan-Bissaka, I would have certainly taken him. Onana, the 6, 50 million pounds. It's a lot of money. Spurs, I'm sure, could have afforded that. That might have sorted an issue, especially with what's happened with Yves Bissouma. But yeah, I think this is it. Is I think a lot of us are thinking about the here and now. There's a bigger picture involved here. We're also playing lots of games in lots of tournaments this year, so we're going to need a big squad. But ultimately, I think there's such a distrust because of what this ownership has done at the club with previous managers that, we're saying on one hand, trust the project, trust the process. This is going to take time. Let's back Ange. But at the same time, I think there's no hiding the fact that all football fans can't help but want everything now, especially with, in my opinion, Arsenal winning the Premier League this season.
Does it make it worse though, Josh, or does it put the club in a little bit more difficult position? The fact that Ange Postecoglou has come out and said on a number of occasions he wants to be competing for number one spot, and I know I keep repeating this, but he has said on so many occasions he doesn't, he's not interested in fifth, fourth, third, or second. He wants to be number one, as all of the fans do. Of course, we want to be number one. We would love to be challenging for the Premier League title in March, April and May, and not just in, September, October or November, like we have done in previous seasons where people have got carried away. But, he wants to be number one. By him saying he wants to be number one, I think their expectations change dramatically. And, then they think that we're going to go out and spend big. And, I know I've said on this channel numerous occasions that it's not all about just spending money. It's about the right recruitment. So, this signing of Odobert could be an absolutely fantastic signing, like you've mentioned about Mickey van der Ven. I completely agree with everything you said there. Some people have criticised the signings of Udogie and Van der Ven, Vicario, etc. They've all turned out to be very, very good signings, and of course, players for the future as well. You don't seem to sound very optimistic for the season either when you're saying that Spurs could finish as high as third and as low as ninth. You know, what do you think the ambition is for this season? Because Ange wants to be number one.
Well, I've said as high as third. I think that's pretty ambitious. I think that'd be a massive improvement, but it depends on signings. And look, I completely get why Ange is saying what he's saying. He's won everywhere he's been. He's one of the most experienced managers. People like to downplay Ange Postecoglou. People like to constantly beat him down and say all this shit about him. Sorry for swearing. You know, frankly, he's one of the most experienced managers. He's won more trophies than the vast majority of managers in the Premier League in his career. And he only knows what it is to go and win things. And that's because he's done it everywhere he's been. And he's not going to say, what's the point of being in a Premier League? What's the point of being in a football club or being in the professional game if you don't want to win every game and you don't want to win every trophy there is to win? I think people take it slightly too literally in terms of he's expecting us to be champions next season. I think Ange Postecoglou knows that we're not going to be champions next season, or it's unlikely. But he's also signed a 4-year deal with us. He signed a 4-year deal. Let me remind people, he had a better first season than Mikel Arteta did at Arsenal. He had a better first season than Jurgen Klopp did at Liverpool. And Klopp and Arteta were not winning titles. Arteta's still not won the title. And it took Klopp, 5 years to win a Premier League. So I would say, for me, a good season is getting back into the top 4 and conceding far fewer goals, scoring more goals, addressing some of the issues that we need addressing, being open to the counter-attack, set pieces, struggling to break down a low block. If we can thrive in those areas, we can improve in those areas drastically, we will be there or thereabouts. We will be a lot closer to the teams above, because on our day, as Spurs showed with the start of last season, and as Spurs showed even with, a completely depleted squad at Manchester City, and we get a 3-3 draw, Spurs can beat anyone on their day. And I stand by that. I think that we need
it's about the consistency though, Josh, isn't it?
It is about the consistency. But would anyone here complain genuinely if Spurs finish in the top 4? The most important thing for me is Tottenham need to go and win a trophy this season. Bilbao, I want to be there. Europa League final, I want to win a European trophy. Spurs are capable of doing that, especially with the new league format. 100% capable of doing it. FA Cup, let's go and win an FA Cup. It's a bit of luck at the end of the day. I mean, last season we get Manchester City at home and the goal is Nathan Ake shoving Vicario into the goal before putting it in, of which one of the new rule changes in the Premier League next season will be that they are now going to penalise that a lot more again. So we should see Vicario protected a lot more. What happens if we end up with Maidstone United at home, or Wycombe Wanderers, or Morecambe, or whoever? Not every year you're going to get Manchester City at home first up. Carabao Cup, we should have a thicker squad, a better squad to compete in a game like that and be able to rotate and not lose on penalties. I think that there's a little bit too much doom mongering ahead of the new season, but I am worried at the same time because I'm looking what others are doing and I want to see Spurs sign at least 2 more players. I think we need left back cover. Patrick Dorgu from Lecce is a player that I keep hearing. And for me, we still need another attacking player, whether that's a winger or an attacking midfielder. But also, Ange Postecoglou talked about this in his presser, which I assume you were at, Chris.
No.
But you caught up with it, right?
Yeah.
And what I want to allude to in particular is what he said about Rodrigo Bentancur. So what he said about Bentancur, in terms of his mindset, he's in a much better place of knowing from an injury perspective, he's free of that. 12 months on from a serious, significant injury, which always takes a bit of time. And it's been great to have him part of the group. He came on against Bayern. He was really impressed by him. But one point that he made, which I think was absolutely crucial, was this part here, which is where he said, I thought he looked really good, has looked good in training. So hopefully that is where some of our improvement comes from. Guys who last year, for one reason or another, couldn't get to the levels we know they can. And if we can do that with guys like him and the ones who had good seasons last year, if we can improve them as well, that improvement is what I'm looking for. Essentially, and this is from your tweet on Bentancur, there's a lot of players, Maddison, who'll be looking to prove a lot of people wrong after he was snubbed for the Euros. And, we've all got in his back. He's been terrible since he's come back from his injury. Udogie has shown a few weaknesses at times. Vicario certainly hasn't been all that impressive in pre-season. Brennan Johnson, Kulusevski, we could go on and on. There are players that didn't fulfill their potential entirely last season that have a lot of room for improvement. And
Josh, I was going to say, there's a lot of comments coming in, and there's a lot of swear words coming in as well about this new signing of Odegaard. A lot of people aren't happy because they want the experienced players, particularly Eze, to come in. That's a name that keeps cropping up in all of these comments. When you said about you would hope and you think that it would be progression by Spurs finishing in the top 4 this coming season, if that was the case, for Spurs to finish in the top 4, what else do you think that we need in this transfer window in the next couple of weeks?
Look, Spurs need, as I mentioned before, they need left back cover desperately. If Udogie gets injured, we need, and this is the thing, I don't want to be using Van der Ven as a left back, even though he can play there. I would rather us go and get another left back. I really like Milos Kerkez at Bournemouth. I really like Patrick Dorgu from Lecce. And they would both be good. Again, people might not be happy because they're young and they're, not necessarily 100% all there right now, and they've got potential. But let's not forget they're going to have to play behind Destiny Udogie. So it's very hard to convince a big name to sit on the bench behind Destiny, who for me is top. And then for me, we need Eze. We do need Eze. Let's be real. Eze drastically improves our team. If Spurs went before the deadline and said, right, okay, here's deadline day, Spurs are signing Eberiche Eze, suddenly everything changes. I think the whole fan base changes. If Spurs get the player that they've been begging for all summer to top off a window where we can get left back cover, we've signed a striker who Ange wants, we've signed a young winger who is clearly quite exciting, even if people don't know an awful lot about him. We've signed Archie Gray, one of the most talented youngsters in this country. I mean, people are talking about him in a similar vein to the way that they were talking about Jude Bellingham when he was at Birmingham City. Bergval's come in, looks incredible. And we can get improvement from the players that we've already signed, the Van der Vens, the Dragushins, the Udogies and players like that. I mean, look at how much Porro improved last season. If he improves even further, you can't not be positive about the season. But as I say, there are 2 players still to sign for me. I said 3 to you before on your channel, and I still think we'll get 2 more in. Left back cover and 1 marquee signing. And I think Spurs are in a great position. Great position.
Like you say, I think that the project under Ange Postecoglou does need time and patience. But I do get and I do understand a lot of fans' frustration where they want the marquee signings in, whatever you want to call them, statement signings, game changers, players that improve the starting 11, players that, can give us some real depth. I do get that. But it is going to be, patience, and it is going to be a long process. And I just hope that Spurs carry on improving this squad, every transfer window, because that's exactly what we need to happen. Josh, let's get through a couple of the questions here. These were from videos that I posted in the last couple of days. Silence says, good decision by the club on Basuma. Northampton magazine have stated Basuma out, a role model with no credibility. First of all, what do you make of the incident involving Yves Bissouma, and what do you make of the club and Ange Postecoglou in the press conference yesterday coming out and saying that we've actually suspended him for the Leicester game?
I think he's a effing idiot, for starters. He is an absolute idiot. I mean, what on earth is he playing at? What on earth is he playing at? Look, players make mistakes. If he was 20 years old, I would have an ounce of sympathy. Everyone makes mistakes. But he is, 26, 27 years old now? He's been around the professional game long enough. In terms of the players that we're signing, he's going to be one of the more experienced players in that squad. And that is the example he sets. I think Ange was really good on him. Obviously, I think it's the right decision to suspend him, to our detriment, I think, because it would be good to have a player like that involved.
Yeah.
Even if off the bench. But I just get the sense that it's not going to be one game. I don't think Ange Postecoglou, I'd be surprised. I'd be really surprised if Ange Postecoglou brings him straight back in after this. I wouldn't be surprised if we sell him now. And if it's down to me, this is a player that had an awful lot to prove in pre-season. Thought he started off well. He got progressively worse, but, still, I don't think put a bad performance in pre-season. After his drop-off, I would say post Luton away last year when he got sent off, he was never the same player since. This was a moment where he needs to prove himself, and he's lost all credibility for me. And if you can sell him now and get someone else in, gladly, because Ange talks about wanting players with top mentality, and it's about, and I think he was right. He didn't just let himself down. He didn't just let, the fans down. He let his teammates down. He let the manager down. It's not an example that he wants to set. And if Ange is trying to build this mentality, winning mentality at the club, and you've got someone undermining it essentially by doing something this stupid, far easier for Ange to just cut him out. I'm sure there'll be plenty of takers.
Josh, comment here. Chris, you've been saying it's about not about the most expensive signings, but about the signings that Ange Postecoglou want. Josh, right at the start of the show, you say that the Odebert signing is an Ange Postecoglou signing. All the signings so far since he has been in charge, do you think they are all his signings, or do you think that some of them are club signings, or do you think some of them are a mixture? Because I always have the sense that some of these signings are club signings, players for the future, because let's face it, we know that managers and players come and go. Ange Postecoglou could be here in 4 years' time. He could be gone in 12 months' time. We never know what's going to happen with a manager, because it is a results-led business, and a bad start to the Premier League, who knows what can happen. Where do you actually stand on Ange Postecoglou having the 100% final say on every signing that Spurs bring in?
Well, when we look at some of the players that we've brought in, they all seem a bit weird if it's not Ange Postecoglou signings. That's kind of, because if Spurs fans, I feel like they wouldn't, they certainly wouldn't go for a lot of these players. But I think, the point is right. We've got to sign the players that Ange Postecoglou wants. Otherwise, we're not backing him. And if we want Ange Postecoglou at this football club, we've got to buy the players he wants to fit his system to bring success his way, and look, I think I welcome that. I welcome that because I don't think Levy's previously done that before. But yeah, I think it's one of those that, it can go one of two ways, and you don't want a situation where you've given him all his players and then say he storms off in January because he's not had what he wants or something's happened, and then you're stuck with all these players that don't suit the system that the next manager wants to pay, which is why I think actually these young players makes a lot of sense because, if a new manager was to come in at some point, at least there's potential in these guys and they're players that can be molded probably in different ways. But yeah, look, I think it's so important that we back Ange. It's so important that we give him the players he wants, because if we believe that he can be the man to give us success, then that is exactly what you need. What's the point of signing Conte players for Ange Postecoglou?
There was a question for you earlier on in the chat, Josh, and it was having a bit of a dig at you as well, saying about Timo Werner. Do you think Ange Postecoglou wanted to sign Timo Werner twice?
Well, your guess is as good as mine. I don't see the logic in it personally, but I don't know Ange's opinion on it. Ange keeps, every time Ange mentions Timo Werner, he's very positive about him. Very positive about him. So, Ange sees him week in, week out, day in, day out, and obviously sees something there. To be honest, I think there's an element of opportunities. I don't believe that you can give 100% signings to a manager because of a reason I've just mentioned there. If the manager leaves, you're stuck in a way. Timo Werner, it sounds like bloody opportunity, doesn't it? I'm not a fan. And he can't score. But maybe we see a different side of him this season. I hope, but I'm not sure.
Fabrizio Romano has just stated that Tottenham have invested important fee on French winger Wilson Odobert, as he was on the list of several clubs in the UK and Italy. £25 million fixed fee, £5 million in add-ons, and also a 10% sell-on clause for Burnley. Josh, let's get on to some more questions. Marco writes here, big mistake loaning Donnelly out. Who's going to be covering left back? Cozy Thomas writes, Donnelly on loan, why he should be in the current squad. Now, it has been reported by Football.London yesterday that Jamie Donnelly is just about to sign a new contract at Spurs and then go to League One side Leyton Orient for a loan spell for the 2024-2025 season. What do you make of this? Because personally, if I feel that if someone like Jamie Donnelly is not going to get first team minutes at Spurs, or a number of them, and I've said this before, like players like him, they are so used to playing week in, week out, every minute of every game. And, he was a massive part of the under-21s winning the title twice last season, if you count the playoff system as well, winning 2 trophies. But if a player like that is not going to get regular minutes in the first team, there's no point sending him back to the under-21s. I feel like this would be a really, really good loan spell for him as someone like Leyton Orient. Do you agree, or would you like to see him stay and try and get as many minutes as possible in the first team?
I'm with you, Chris. I think the loan's the best thing for him. Give him first team minutes, get him to bulk out a bit more. The experience, it was great for Ollie Skip at Norwich before he got injured. I think Ashley Phillips has really benefited from being on loan at Plymouth last season. I think much the same for Donnelly. If he's not going to get the minutes, I want to see him get minutes, competitive minutes in the Championship. And hopefully then he comes back next season, having had an absolute blinder of a season and being another brilliant option and feeling like a brand new signing.
Bradley Bolton writes here, good to see Will Lancashire being part of the first team squad. Should be the same for Phillips. Of course, it was reported by Press Association yesterday that as it stands, Will Lancashire will be part of Ange Postecoglou's squad for the coming season. Josh, does this surprise you, or would you like to see Will Lancashire go out on loan? And Bradley also says here about the same for Phillips. Phillips should be given a chance at Spurs.
Yeah, I think Phillips did enough on loan for me to be, warranting a chance. Again, let's not forget that we've got January, so keep him for 6 months, can loan him out in January for the remainder of the season. I think it's good to have, 4 good centre-back options.
What do you do? What would you do with a player like that, though, Josh? Because if they're not getting first team minutes and they don't go back to the under-21s, back in the day,
they should get first team minutes.
Sorry,
you should get first team minutes. Look what happened when we went to Man City last season and we played with 4 fullbacks as our back 4.
Yeah, but if Dragushin and Romero, Van de Ven, they all stay fit, where's he getting minutes?
Well, it would have to be in the Carabao Cup, the Europa League, depending on who we're playing. If we're playing, say, Hajduk Split or Lokomotiv Plovdiv, I'm sure he's good enough to play in those games and get some first team minutes. We're going to have 8 group games to play in the Europa League. Then we're going to have potentially 3rd round, 4th round, is it 5th round, and then up to all the way up to the final in terms of the Carabao Cup. I'd like to see Spurs progress in that. When we're playing, say AFC Wimbledon or we're playing Coventry City. Ashley Phillips has played against Coventry City in the Championship. He's more than capable of playing in a game like that. Ultimately, Manchester City have 4, 5 centre-backs, and we're not having this debate. It often seems like maybe it's just because we're Spurs fans, but there's always seems to be this thing at Spurs that there has to be one in, one out. I don't buy it. I think we need 4 good centre-backs because they can very, very quickly get injured, and I'd much rather Ashley Phillips be playing than Ben Davies at centre-back.
Josh, a couple more comments here. Cole Jeffries writes, I think it will be Ivan Toney, and that was responding to Spurs signing another attacking player. Random YouTube commentator says, considering that, how and when are we actually going to sign someone? When a number of journalists, Josh, including Fabrizio Romano, stated that Spurs will sign one more player in the final third, one more attacking player, is Odegaard this attacking player? And you don't expect any other players in? And Cole writes, he thinks it will be Ivan Toney. Do you think there's any chance of Spurs going for Ivan Toney as well? Having bought Dominic Solanke, could we have both this summer?
I'm not having Ivan Toney. I don't think that's happening. I think if Spurs are going to sign anyone, there's going to be 3 positions that we could see players come in. It's going to be an experienced winger, a 6, and backup left back. Those are the 3 positions. If we're going to sign anyone, it will be in those positions. I'm pretty certain. In terms of names, in terms of who comes in, I mean, your guess is as good as mine. It can change so quickly. Nobody saw Odegaard coming. I think that has thrown any predictions out the window. Would love to see Eze. Think it's very, very unlikely. Think there's a much better chance of him ending up at Manchester City. But, again, I'd quite like Brian Mbeumo. I don't change my opinion on that. I think he would be a superb addition in that right wing slot. I think what that does is free up Kulusevski to play more centrally, which again, I think then rules out Eze. We do need a holding midfielder, especially I think if we're going to get rid of Basuma potentially as well, which I think we should. There's all manner of players that you could bring in. If we're going to talk left backs as well, another name I want to throw in there, I don't think Spurs will get him, but it's a name that I really like, is Ferdi Kadioglu, the Turkish left back at Fenerbahce. I think he's an immense talent. He was really impressive during the Euros. I would love to see him. He's been heavily linked with Brighton. I don't know where that deal is with Brighton at the minute. But, you know, especially when they've got a Stupinian as well, if they're going to go and get him, he's a player I would certainly take at Spurs. But yeah, as I say, I think Odegaard has thrown everything out the window with Spurs now. I do really expect Spurs to sign 2 more. I would be stunned if this was them done. I spoke to Ali Gold yesterday. He said the same thing. He thinks Spurs will certainly be active towards the end of the window.
Are they done though, Josh, in the final third? Because when we've re-signed Timo Werner on loan for another season, now signed Odegaard today, and signed Dominic Solanke, would you expect another attacking player in this next 2 weeks, or are we done in that final third?
No,
you're saying about an experienced winger. Do you think that's going to happen?
I think it will be one of an experienced winger, or it will be 2 of an experienced winger, a 6, and a backup left back. But I also think that, you know, should the right player become available, opportunities, who knows, Spurs may act. But I think those are the 3 positions I would expect. I think Spurs will obviously still be open to an attacking player. I don't think we're going to sign another striker now. I think now with Richarlison staying, the only chance is if Richarlison gets forced out with a very, very big, you know, fee. Then I think we would act. But I could see this going all the way to the window. We don't know. It could be, everything could be done tomorrow. Everything could be done next week. It could go to deadline day. We could sign no one. We could sign 5 players. Who knows? But I do think Spurs will be active. I would be stunned if they weren't.
Josh, John Whitefoot writes here, Eze would make Spurs serious contenders. Now, let me ask you the question. You said that Spurs could finish as high as 3rd and as low as 9th with this current squad. If you put Eze in there, does that change your opinion in any way?
Absolutely. You're winning the lot, mate. You're winning the lot with Eze. No, Eze would be transformative for Spurs, not only because of his quality on the ball, but it's his work rate. It's the fact that he can play on the left wing. He could also play in the midfield. He gives us a lot of options, and he is something totally different to what Maddison is in terms of the take-ons. And I didn't know he was a set-piece kind of player as well. And I was stunned when he took the free kick against Spurs last season and scored, because I'd never seen him take a free kick before. So that's another option. I mean, he scored more free kick goals than Maddison did last season. So there we have it. I think Spurs, as I say, could finish as high as 3rd with Eze. I think we're still way off of the top 2. And I think Liverpool's the big question mark. I've been predicting Liverpool to finish 2nd this season because I've really liked the football I've seen from them in pre-season, covering a few games. But yeah, I mean, let's not forget just how good Arsenal, City, potentially Liverpool are. So it's going to take a lot of work to get up to there. But Eze certainly puts us in a great position to finish above your Uniteds, your Chelseas and Villas and West Hams for sure.
Josh, comment here from Governor75. No, we need a number 6. Now, Ange Postecoglou was asked in the press conference yesterday about Archie Gray and about the Leicester game. And he came out and said that there's a good chance that Archie Gray can start that Leicester game. He was also asked about him playing in the number 6 role. Do you think that will be his position going forward for Tottenham?
Yeah, I think this is one of the things that's really interesting with Archie Gray is his ability not only to play as a midfielder, but his ability to also play, as a fullback as well. And I think probably the reason why I fully expect Spurs to sign a backup left back and not a backup right back is because Archie Gray can play that role. With Basuma out for the Leicester game, again, from my chat with Ali yesterday, he sounded pretty confident. He said he would not be surprised at all if Archie Gray starts the game. I still think it would probably be Bentancur, but whether Ange deems him ready to go straight away, I don't know. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Gray plays there. And another thing, Gray was the player that Ali said was the most impressive for him during pre-season. I mean, would you agree?
Yeah, completely agree. I think he's a star for the future, and I think he's going to be a surprise package for Spurs this year. A young player, but you think that he's been around for ages, and the fact that when a player comes into a big club like Spurs and they just seem so comfortable with all of the surroundings, straight away, fitted in so well, played extremely well, and the fact that he can play in a number of different positions. And Ange Postecoglou loves that, doesn't he? He loves the versatility of players, and when you have that trust from him, I think that he will play in a number of positions across the pitch this coming season. Roberto Camp writes here, Josh, Maddison will be a great cover for Bergvall. Now, Maddison, in the last couple of streams that we've done, has had a little bit of criticism. Of course, he played those opening 10 games of last season extremely well, got the injury against Chelsea, spent a little bit of time out, come back. You've even had a bit of banter there and a bit of a dig saying that he hasn't scored a set piece for us yet. Very true. It's a big season for Maddison, isn't it? Because, of course, he was left out of the Euro squad as well. He's got a point to prove. If someone like Maddison is on form and can play extremely well, he can certainly get this team ticking. And I think it was Les Ferdinand in the last couple of days said that, it's all about the service for Dominic Solanke. If someone like James Maddison can whip those balls in and, get a number of assists, people like Solanke can get on the end of it and finish chances, because he should, on paper, score a hatful of goals. When you think he scored 19 in 38 games for Bournemouth, if the likes of Heung-min Son, Kulusevski, Johnson, Timo Werner, etc., are whipping those balls in for him, he can score a lot of goals in this team. But for James Maddison, big season ahead.
Absolutely. As I said before, he's got a lot of people that he's going to want to prove wrong. He wants to desperately get back in that England team, no doubt. I think it would have really pained him as much as, I thought it was quite sweet, how he was following England and the way he was supporting the lads on social media during the Euros. That would have broken his heart. And he simply wasn't good enough to get in that squad. And the Maddison that we signed at the start of the season and played in that first stretch before he got injured against Chelsea almost certainly would have been on that plane to Germany. No doubt. People were talking about him as signing of the season at that point. So we know what he's capable of, but the only thing that concerns me somewhat is the fact that since he came back from his injury, he's been playing a hell of a lot deeper than he did at the start of the season. He was taking up far more attacking positions. You're scoring goals, setting stuff up, getting really involved, getting shots away. And since he's come back, he's been in this sort of deeper left position quite a lot of the time, not contributing to as many goals, taking a bit longer on the ball, going left to right rather than, just whipping it in. I think part of that's also not having the players to do it. And I think Solanke certainly is a player you want to get balls into the box. But he's got a massive year because Bergvall, we've seen the talent that he possesses. And we know that Bergvall will be, chomping at the bit. He'll be desperate to get involved and to make his mark on the Premier League should Maddison not be up to standard. So this is a big year for Maddison. Really big year for him. But, I'm going to choose to be optimistic and say that, I feel like he has enough fire in his belly and enough motivation this year. He should need no more to come and step it up. He really needs to deliver now. But ultimately, he's the one that has to change fans' minds. He's the one that has to deliver. It's all on him now. Because Bergvall certainly is showing his capabilities, he's showing his potential. And every time he was on the pitch, I felt like he changed the game. Thought he was superb again when he came on against Bayern Munich. So I get the sentiment with that. And actually, to be honest, against Leicester, I don't think he needs any more motivation. First game of the season, Spurs at his old club. I think this is tailor-made for Maddison. If there is any storyline that's going to be written here, you know, Maddison needs to deliver. Maybe he gets his first set-piece goal on Monday.
How are you feeling ahead of that Leicester game, Josh? You feeling confident?
I mean, we don't have happy memories of Leicester the last time we went there. However, I would say that of the promoted teams, I think Leicester is the one that I would most want to play away on opening day. I certainly wouldn't want to be playing the 12:30 at Portman Road against Ipswich. I think that would be a terror for Spurs. Southampton, again, not happy memories with the last one, 3-1 up and then completely blowing it. The game that caused Conte's infamous meltdown and the end of his time at the club. Again, it's unpredictable. I think Leicester, they've had a lot of problems with the financial fair play, the PSR. I like Steve Cooper. I do. But, let's not forget Spurs have got the better of Steve Cooper. I think each time that we've played one of his sides, I think we've got too much for them. I like Bobby D. Cordova-Reid, but I don't think he's not a player that's, for me, going to make a huge difference. Kiernan Dewsbury-Hall, who for me was the standout player last season, alongside Harry Winks, he's not there now. Harry Winks equally will want to prove a point against Spurs. And I've always felt he's good at keeping the ball. But also it's interesting because Leicester, I think last season, had the most Premier League ready squad there. I mean, they kept almost everyone last season in the Championship. But also, Jamie Vardy, how old is he now? 37? Had a great season in the Championship, but Premier League is a lot quicker. Can he, still deliver at that age? I just think Leicester, for me, haven't done enough this window. And for me, I'm pretty confident. I think we'll probably concede. But if you want a score prediction, for me, I'd say 3-1 Spurs.
It's very important, Josh, isn't it? To, any Premier League season for us to get off to a good winning start. I know, of course, we were unbeaten after 10 games last season. Postecoglou's first season in charge. Everything seemed to be going extremely well after those 10 games. And, of course, we faced Chelsea and it derailed us for a number of reasons, suspensions, injuries and various other problems. But how important is it for you that we do get off to a winning start, playing some decent, attractive football as well? And some of the new signings, definitely Dominic Solanke getting off to a good start, a goal-scoring start.
Yeah, massively important. I think one thing to bear in mind is I don't think Spurs are particularly slow starters in the Premier League. Certainly in recent years, Spurs have started pretty well. And by the end of August, we found ourselves after 3-4 games, top of the league.
Yeah.
I think Spurs, one concern I've had is this thing of Spurs looking a little bit leggy in games. But let's not forget, this is because they've been doing double sessions to get their fitness up to standards. And a lot of the players that have come back, your Mickey van der Vens, your Romeros, they've been playing football. A lot of football up until recently. They only had a few weeks off and they're back again. So I don't think the fitness will be an issue. But I think as we discussed before, I think if we want to be anywhere within competition for top 3, top 4, we need to be winning at least 6, if not 7 of the first 10 games as a minimum. So we've got some tough games. We've got Newcastle away early. That's an opportunity to, sort of banish the demons of the past going there. That's a 1:30 game, I think, on a Sunday. We've got Arsenal at home, 4th. I think that's a great time to play them rather than in the title run-in at home. And, we've lost 2 on the bounce against them at home. We cannot lose a 3rd time in a row to Arsenal. We've got Man United away. Will their signings gel in time? Are they going to be up to speed? Eric Ten Hag said in his presser that he does not feel that Man United are 100% ready for the start of the season, which is a strange thing for a manager to say. So we've got a great opportunity. It's not the easiest of opening 6-7 games, but a real opportunity to take points. And if Spurs can come out of it unbeaten again, I think we'll be in a great mood again. And I think much the same. I think it's going to be vitally important to the whole season, because what happens if further down the line we get the injuries, we tail off again? How important was that opening 10 games to us being in the Europa League at all last season? So, yeah, for me, it's massively important.
Josh, you mentioned playing Newcastle. That's our third game. Newcastle away, and then Arsenal at home is our fourth game. Last season, we really struggled on set pieces, as you said, particularly against Newcastle and Arsenal. If there are going to be any concerns about set pieces, we will certainly know about them in those two games, won't we?
For sure. Look, I think I feel semi-better by the fact that they have said that the laws around the goalkeeper are changing again, and they're going to be tightening up on what they can do to Vicario. Let's not forget what Arsenal did. I mean, the unstrapping of Vicario's glove from the corner. Vicario... And weirdly, it was actually after that City FA Cup game that we seemed to get significantly worse at defending set pieces, and we conceded a lot more from them. So with Vicario having more protection, I feel better. The other thing is, we can't categorically say, we can't categorically say that we haven't improved, because we've not seen the starting back four and goalkeeper together in pre-season. So I'm not going to go into 100% we haven't improved, because we've not seen that. For all we know, this week in training, they might have had Mickey, Romero, Udogie and Porro and Vicario working very hard on set pieces. And we may all be surprised against Leicester. So I'm not going to go into the season doom-mongering over that entirely, because I think that there is a chance we've improved there. I think for sure, if that's the one thing that we improve on, I think, we'll be in a great position. I think Spurs will start the season well. I'm confident that we'll win. And I am excited about the season. Of course, I'm a bit worried, but I think that there's nerves and excitement at the same time. But I think we're going to improve on last season for sure. You told me, you said to me, where do you think we'll finish last season? I said 5th. I think we'll finish 4th this season. And I'll say that with chest.
Out of a possible 12 points in the opening 4 games, Josh, Leicester away, Everton at home, Newcastle away, and then Arsenal at home, how many points do you think Spurs will pick up?
10.
10 out of 12. Wow. Okay. Josh, Dark B writes here, if we can offload Reguilon and Lo Celso and bring in a left back and centre backs, I'd say it's a very good window. The biggest thing that Spurs have needed for the past few transfer windows is to offload all of the deadwood. They are finally doing it. Now, there has been a lot of criticism about what Spurs have brought in so far, or what we haven't brought in so far. But it is fair to say that since Ange Postecoglou has been at the football club in the last, 12, 13, 14 months now, I think it is, there have been a lot of players going out the door, including a lot of staff changes as well. Even Postecoglou come out and said the other day that, 12 months ago, probably half the people that were there have now gone. How impressed have you been on the outgoings and the continuous outgoings? Because Football.London even reported yesterday they still expect 7 players to go out the door. A lot of these being the youngsters going out on loan, but still 7 players going out the door. Perhaps Reguilon, perhaps Lo Celso going out the door, and perhaps bringing 3 players in. So, Football.London are expecting or reporting that Tottenham could get 10 deals done, Josh, in the next 14 days, 7 going out the door, with a number have already gone out the door. How impressed have you been by that?
Hugely. I mean, we've spoken off the stream about this. Spurs are moving very, very quickly. And I repeat, Postecoglou is far more ruthless than I think people give him credit for. And there are players that we never thought we would ever see the end of. leaving the club, Tongi and Ndombele, Eric Dyer, and I think that we're going to continue to do that. I think that now, of course, it's about finding the right buyer, and I think there's going to be an element of Spurs cutting their losses on players. Look, Lo Celso, he got the assist for the winning goal at the Copa America. Always looks brilliant when he plays for Argentina. For me, always looks good when he plays for Spurs too. But with the injuries, with everything that's happened, clearly Postecoglou doesn't fancy him. But, I think he's a player that deserves to command a good fee. I just don't think that will happen. But I think Spurs are going to be, and they've shown, they got rid of our club record signing Tongi and Ndombele on a free transfer. Got him out his contract. And for me, I much expect the same in terms of Lo Celso, probably around 15 million max. There'll be other players out the door in terms of, I think Donnelly will go on loan. I think Lancashire, you mentioned earlier, at the moment will be part of the first team plans. I can see him still going on loan. And then, elsewhere, I mean, Basuma could be one that goes now. That might be a new one. Who would take him? I think, despite the troubles, I think there would be a lot of takers for him because there's not a huge amount of good players in that defensive midfield position. It's a very sought after position. Oliver Skipp may end up leaving the club. And I'm sure there would be takers for him. So, yeah, I am pretty confident. I think Spurs will probably get out youngsters more than anyone. But I think that Spurs will certainly get players out the door. They've shown they can do it. Why would that stop now? I mean, I think it's really refreshing to see actually Spurs finally getting rid of so much of the dead wood. Emerson Royale, I loved him for the vibes, but my God, he just doesn't suit the system. And we got, what was it, 15 million plus for him for AC Milan. So, yeah, I think we actually have no reason really to be so pessimistic in terms of getting the rest of the deadwood out and getting a few more in. I think we will.
Well, AC Milan seem very happy with their purchase. Mike Chase writes here, Josh, Chris, I really don't get those supporters who are still negative about our club. Now, I've read that comment out. I had this one written down already, but there has been a lot of negativity in the chat today, Josh, particularly after the signing of Wilson Odobert, because I think a lot of people expected different names or a lot bigger names or a lot more experienced names, to put it politely. Do you get a lot of the negative vibes about the club and a lot of the negativity around the club, Josh? Because, when Ange came in, last summer, it was so obvious that the club did need to change. The club admitted that it needed to change because that's why they made the appointment of Ange Postecoglou. They needed to change the football system. They needed they needed to bring in a manager that was going to play decent, attractive, entertaining football, which Ange, certainly did that. Hopefully that will continue this coming season. And we all knew, every single Spurs fan, no matter what our beliefs or expectations are, we all knew that a major rebuild was going to take place. And we all knew, I think a lot of us did, that it was going to take time and patience. Do you think that some people just want it all now, and just want, like you said earlier about playing Championship Manager, just say, sign him? It doesn't work like that. How long do you think that this process will take before Spurs are serious title contenders? Will that ever happen under Ange Postecoglou, in your opinion?
Well, I think the fans will play a huge role in that. I hope we get right behind him and every player, whether we wanted them in or not, whether they were first choice or not. We get behind everyone representing the club and wearing the shirt. That will help. I was asking you about the Bayern Munich game. I had to work, so I was unable to go. But I asked you about the atmosphere, and you said it was very weird.
Yeah, it was.
Hotspur Stadium has a terrible atmosphere. I won't have anything else. We have got one of the worst atmospheres in the Premier League. It's dog shit. It's terrible. Spurs fans need to show up as well. And I know the saying, well, the players need to turn up for the fans to turn up. It's both. We need to show up loud and proud this season, make a lot of noise, get behind the players, every single one, even if Odebear plays and he has a poor first game. Let's not get on these players' backs straight away. Let's actually back the manager, back the project, get behind it. And if we can get behind the team from the start, I think there's a good chance that the team will deliver this season. I do agree it does work both ways. But look, the atmosphere at Spurs has been so flat. And you look at what's going on in the fan base now. I know social media is not real life, but there's a lot of negativity, as has been said, about Spurs' chances this season, where we're at going into a season, when there's actually very little evidence to support why that should be the case. You know, I think once the season starts, I think a lot of people that are worried or are nervous, you know, we're going to, you know, that we are going to all get behind everyone straight away. But look, this is a massive season for us. It can be a really special one. I really don't want to go to Tottenham Stadium for the Everton game, even if we've lost against Leicester, with a flat atmosphere. I don't want to see it. You know, we can't have that. I think Spurs can achieve good things this season under Postecoglou. I think in terms of when we may see Spurs being a contender, well, if we have a good season this season, we can get back into the Champions League, hopefully win a trophy as well, then that puts us in a great position to strengthen further. This is the second season. This is Ange Postecoglou's first full summer. Because remember when he came in, you know, he already came in partway through the summer last year. This is his second season. You know, we're not even halfway through his first, you know, potentially his first contract at Spurs. We don't know whether he'll get another contract beyond that, how long he'll stay for. Everything can change so quickly. But, you know, next season, I think we've got a great chance, but we need to improve on this season. Ange has improved his teams in the second season everywhere he's been. So hopefully, irrespective of the owners, irrespective of Daniel Levy, who, you know, again, I'll say I can't stand, and irrespective of a number of things, you know, it's very easy to want everything now. It's very easy to look at what the other clubs are doing, but we're also doing quite a lot. I mean, I never thought we'd see Deadwood shipped out of the club so quickly. And I didn't think we would sign a striker to replace Harry Kane. I'm not saying that Solanke is in any way, shape or form Harry Kane, but, you know, signing a striker for a club record fee after selling Harry Kane. So, look, I want to go into the season with positivity. I think we'll get into the top four this season. And I think then that can be the real platform for a third season to really start going for it in terms of win now players, bigger names, bigger fees, and having a good go.
Josh, you had time to think about the signing of Dominic Solanke now for a week or so. What would you predict for him in terms of how many goals he will score at Spurs? Do you think he will be successful?
Yeah, I as I say, he wasn't my first choice, but I am warming to him because, you know, once again, it's one that clearly Ange wants. That's what has been reported. He was Ange's man. He had a very good season last year, 19 goals, 3 assists. I think if he can return over 15 goals in the Premier League and over 20 goals in all competitions, I'd be very happy with that as a first season. Especially with Son, like you would expect Son to get 15 plus goals as well. You know, if Spurs can be in a position where you've got 2-3 players on 10, 15 plus goals, I'll be very pleased with that. Will he get more than 20? I don't know. If I was going to predict, I think he'll probably get around 17, 18 goals in the Premier League, maybe slightly more. Who knows? Now that he's playing with better players and a much better squad than he had at Bournemouth, if he scored 19 goals there, perhaps he's going to score even more. But yeah, I'm going to choose to have faith we're not signing an unknown for 65 million. We're signing a player that has a lot of experience in the Premier League, English football experience as well. A very sort of cute player, good finisher, pretty quick, handful. He's always looked dangerous when he's played against us. So, yeah, I am warming to him. But again, if he is going to start against Leicester, and I fully expect him to start against Leicester, he's the one that's got to prove me right. He's got to prove those that are being positive right and the ones being negative wrong. So fingers crossed he goes out there, plays, and gets a debut goal or two.
Yeah. Soul Sniper Gaming writes here, need a left back, left centre back cover. Daniel Turner writes, what worries me is an injury to left back or striker. We have problems. Jack writes, unfortunately, it looks like we will be short again. Not enough quality in depth. Thinking about the depth squad, or the depth of the squad, Josh, when you think about the best starting 11 that Ange Postecoglou will have, the bench, is the bench good enough for you? Is the bench good enough to be playing those Europa League games, those Carabao Cup games, to go far in competitions? Because, of course, I think all of us, would agree. I know a lot of people have different opinions on our football club and how it's run and, the players that we have or the players that we're signing. But I think it's fair to say that we all want success at the football club. We all agree on that. And we all want to see Spurs going far in cup competitions, the League Cup, the FA Cup and the Europa League. I know a lot of Spurs fans actually who are booking hotels and booking flights to Bilbao in hope that we do get to the Europa League final. I'm not one of them at the moment, but we certainly do hope that we will go, far in these competitions. Do we have enough depth, in your opinion?
You're going to hate my answer, but let's wait until the end of the window. At the moment, we're looking good. We certainly have more depth than we had last season, but I still think we need two players to kind of, to fill me with confidence. And, to that comment earlier, I think that is a good point, actually. It's not just backup left back, but it's someone that can also probably play in that left centre-back role. Can we find someone that's, let's face it, it's going to be a young player for a good price that can play both? Because I think if you look at it from that perspective, it's, Dragushin is more of a Romero replacement or alternative. We don't really have a good Mickey one. I don't think Ben Davies cuts it. So I suppose technically then Ben Davies is a backup left back. And then that probably does free up Ashley Phillips to go on loan as well.
Josh, Peter Holman writes, we always leave it to the last minute, which is very frustrating. We haven't left it to the last minute in the last couple of windows. And we have got some signings in early in this window. What do you think the expectation is amongst the fan base for the next 2 weeks? Do you think that a lot of the fans are expecting a game changer, a marquee signing, someone who is a household name, perhaps who has got Premier League experience?
I think fans have been very clear about what they want. They want Eberechi Eze. They want, a 6 left back cover, an experienced winger, players that we're being told Spurs do want. But you only have to look at the comments. I think very few people are confident they will actually go and get it, and that is, testament to the ownership and the lack of decent ownership from a footballing perspective. A lot of people do not have faith that Daniel Levy will deliver that for Ange Postecoglou. But what I would say, as critical as I am, is, we've made a lot of good signings over the last few years, especially since Fabio Paratici came into the club. And I do think that we need 2 more players. But, I think I think, is that how you're going to pronounce it? TSOM. So there's 2 more first 11 players. Yeah, I mean, this is it. I think we do need to start. We do need to start signing players that are going to be improvements on the starting 11 and not just players for the future. As I said at the start of the stream, we're competing in the 2024-25 season, not the 2027-28 season. We need some players for now, and that will give us the boost that we need. And I think that will give people a lot more confidence. As I say, Eze and someone else.
Josh, I'm going to leave it on a comment here from Roy Price. I'm starting to feel excited for the new season now.
Good.
If I was to ask you your predictions for this coming season with the current squad that we've got, where realistically do you think Spurs will finish? And could this be the season? Is this going to be the season that Ange Postecoglou delivers a trophy for Tottenham after, which will be, at the time, 17 long years without one?
I think we'll finish 4th. I've said that. I really do. I know Newcastle are dangerous. Man United will be there or thereabouts. No one knows what to expect from Villa this season with Champions League football. Chelsea, again, massive question mark. West Ham, exciting as well. I think it's very hard to call, actually, between those sort of clubs below City, Liverpool and Arsenal. Unfortunately, I do think Arsenal will win the league. Pains me to say it, but I just think they've got to at some point. But I'm choosing to be optimistic on the fact that Postecoglou has improved every club he's been at in the second season. The only caveat to that is the fact that this is the Premier League. This is different to the SPL. This is different to the Japanese league, the J League, and different to the A League in Australia as well. But I'm going to choose to be optimistic. I think we must finish in the top 4 to call it a successful season. Trophies, your guess is as good as mine. I really hope so. I'm not going to call it now and say, yeah, we're going to win the lot, because what will happen is we'll end up getting into 3 finals. We could get in the FA Cup final, the Carabao Cup final, and the Europa League final and lose all 3. So that would just be Spurs. I really hope so. I've got a sneaky feeling that we're going to have a good Europa League season. Whether we win it, I mean, it's Tottenham, so who knows? If we need to get to the final to have a chance of winning it anyway. So let's get at least to a final.
And Spurs could face Jose Mourinho in the Europa League. Wouldn't that be interesting? Josh, thank you so much. You've been an excellent guest as per usual, and look forward to having you back on again very, very soon. I know it's your day off today, but as far as the Daily Mail goes, I take it you're very busy at the moment with the transfer window and covering all 20 Premier League clubs.
Absolutely. I mean, it never stops. Just after the Olympics, straight into the Premier League season. It's chaotic as ever. I think now is the time it's going to get really, really, really busy, especially with the Prem starting tonight, which I'm really excited for. So, yeah, fingers crossed Spurs start the season well. And the next time I'm on here, it's positivity, few good signings, and the outlook on the season is a little bit different to what I think quite a few people are feeling at the minute.
Josh, if people want to follow you on social media, where can they find you? And also, can we talk about your YouTube channel coming up? Yeah.
Not yet. We're still working on finding time. But look, we're going to be trying to work on European football specific pod, essentially, covering players and leagues and interesting stories from around Europe this season. You can find me at Josh Hughes TV on Twitter. I'm going to try and be a little bit more active on there as the window kind of heats up towards the back end and with the start of the season. But yeah, also on here quite a lot. So
you are.
I'm sure you see me more on here.
Well, Josh, we love having you on here. So thank you so much for your time again. And we'll look forward to seeing you again on here very, very soon. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks for listening. And we will be back again very soon with another edition of the Spurs Chat podcast. Enjoy the rest of your week and come on, you Spurs.